Dr. Brooks will now deliver the commencement address.
Good morning, and thank you, Dean Joe. Thank you, President Leshin. I'm really honored to be here today. I'm honored to share with you the experience of receiving a degree from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. As I understand it, it's ranked #1. It's great. I want to briefly just congratulate all the friends and family members here. I know you've worked so hard to get your sons and daughters through this, and congratulations to all the sons and daughters on receiving the degree today. Now, what am I doing here talking to all of you? Well, as your commencement speaker, and I'm quoting now, I, as an older person, am supposed to share my experience, values, and advice. That's what it says in Wikipedia. I looked it up. So I'm an AI and robotics person. It would be strange, given the position of AI and robotics in today's zeitgeist, if I didn't talk about that at least a little. So I'm going to start with that. And then I'm going to tell you some values that you might keep in mind as you go forth in the world. So to start off with, I want to mention Roy Amara. He was a futurist. He passed away about a decade ago, an American futurist. And there's something he said that's known as Amaras Law. It's in Wikipedia. You can look it up. And it's always impressed me and helped me think about technology in the world. Amaras Law is this: we tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short run and underestimate it in the long run. Again, overestimate in the short run, and underestimate in the long run. Now, I think the press and a lot of eminent people are overestimating the impact of AI and robotics in the short run. But they're probably underestimating it for the long run. And why is this important to you? Well, first, you're all, by being at WPI, you become engrossed in technology, whether you are a technology engineering major or some other major, it's all around you. And secondly, all of you who are graduating today are going to be here for the long run. So that underestimate in the long run is important to you because you're going to be around for it. I just want to look at another example to get an idea of what Amaras Law means by looking back. And this is something that played out in your grandparents' lives. In the 50s and 60s, the first commercial computers started to come online. And by the early 70s, about a dozen of them, just 12 or so, were networked together in what was called the ARPANET, the predecessor to the internet. And by today's standards, these computers were extraordinarily feeble. If you buy one of those birthday cards that you open up and it, plays happy birthday in a really, horrible little speaker, that was about the power of those computers in the 50s and 60s and even 70s. Today, we just put them in birthday cards and they do a bad job. But there were predictions back in the 50s and 60s that computers were going to, destroy all jobs within 5 to 10 years. And even more, there was worry that the Soviet computers would talk to the American computers over networks and decide that people were pretty worthless and let off all the nuclear weapons and destroy everyone so they could live in peace. That was a gross overestimate in the short term. But at the same time, people had a complete underestimate of the effect of computers in the long term. And if you want to see how bad their estimates were, go back and look at a 1960s science fiction movie or Star Trek episode. And, they were talking about hundreds of years in the future, but their predictions of computers hundreds of years in the future were completely quaint by today's standards. No one in 1967 foresaw that we'd all be carrying around supercomputers in our pockets. Each of our smartphones are each more powerful than all the computers combined in the world in 1967. Every one of us carries that. No one saw instant communication across the planet, video everywhere, instant access to all the world's knowledge, Google and Wikipedia. No one saw instant news and entertainment. And this all happened in your grandparents' lifetimes. It's going to happen to you. The impact of AI and robotics is similarly going to transform the world in your lifetimes. So you better prepare for the uncertainty that's coming there. You're going to be around for the next 50 years, and there's going to be tectonic transformations. So let's go back to Amaras Law. Overestimate in the short run, underestimate in the long run. How are we overestimating in the short run? Right now, lots of companies are saying, you know, we're going to have driverless cars everywhere on our roads in the next 2 to 5 years. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're overestimating how quickly it's going to happen. Every time I get in an Uber, I mention to the driver, don't worry, your job's safe. We're not going to have driverless cars mixing with driver-full cars and with pedestrians in the short term. I recently saw a tweet. It said, and I quote, "The Uber passengers could tell they were in a driverless car because there were 2 human drivers rather than 1. So I think there's a long tail of unsolved problems that occur in unrestricted environments, not the least of which is going to be the aggressive behavior of human drivers and pedestrians towards driverless cars. We already see that with bicyclists in Mountain View in California. They sort of take advantage of those poor Google cars who don't understand how the world really works. But we are going to see driverless cars in special zones pretty soon. We're going to see special lanes for driverless cars. We're going to, when we pull up to a parking garage, we'll get out of our car, and the car will go park itself in the garage 1 inch away from all the other cars because no one's going to have to open doors. So we're going to see driverless cars come slowly over time, slowly at first, in restricted environments, and 50 years from now, none of you are going to be allowed to drive cars. Just there will be no human drivers. We're going to transform our cities step by step, and 50 years from now, cities will look as different as they did 100 years ago before we had horseless cars. Now we're having driverless cars. We also see in the news, and we hear pundits say that AI is going to take away half the jobs in the next few years. AI will take away a lot of jobs in the next few years, and it's going to take away many jobs in the short term. But I think it's going to be a little more gradual than people think. And I think the fundamental problem is that people make a mistake in understanding the current capabilities of AI. I know many of you studied AI here. Many of you probably built AI systems as projects. But I think what happens is that people hear about performance of an AI system. For instance, a year ago, the AlphaGo beat the world Go champion. Or we hear about programs labeling images with keywords, and they make the mistake of seeing that performance and generalizing to the competence of a human. So, if you saw a human looking at images and writing Chinese characters describing what was in the image, you would think, oh, that human surely can read Chinese. But the program that labels for Baidu, a Chinese company, labels all their images in Chinese, can only write Chinese or output Chinese characters, can't read Chinese characters. So our AI systems are very fragile, do fairly simple, repetitive things. On the other hand, the bad news is we have made many jobs in our world simple, doing repetitive things, and those jobs are in danger. And it's going to cause economic disruption. Here's an example, local example. On October 28th, all the toll booths and toll takers disappeared from the Mass Pike. You remember that? For those of you driving the Mass Pike, they just went overnight, gone. And it was RFID technology, but also artificial intelligence vision technology, which lets the cameras read everyone's license plate as they go by in case they don't have one of the RFID tags. So it was AI enabled getting rid of all the toll takers. People didn't complain about toll taker jobs going away. I didn't see any stories. The poor toll takers lost their jobs. And I think that's because we thought they're pretty bad jobs being a toll taker. We didn't feel bad for them. But as the jobs get closer to many of our relatives, we may start to feel a little worse about it. So there's going to be a lot of jobs, mostly transactional jobs like screening X-rays, running a checkout register, making fast food, the last few bank teller jobs, valet parking at garages, all of those are going to go away in the shortish term. And over time, other jobs are going to change in the long term. And you will all be faced with that as you go through your careers, seeing how jobs change and how you will have to adapt to that. And many of you will be part of generating those changes so as technologists. It's not going to be earth-shaking in the short run, but it will be a change in the world over the next 50 years, and you'll all be part of that. So now, as you're going through that transformation of our world, I want to give you some advice for how you might live your lives as this is happening around you. And I want to focus on 3 nouns: compassion, contribution, and community. First, compassion. Have compassion for everyone around you and treat everyone as human beings. It's going to enrich your life and it's going to enrich theirs. You've all shown how truly capable you are by graduating from the #1 ranked institute in the country. But remember, there was some luck too. No matter how humble your background, no matter how hard your parents had to work to get you through here, there are other people who are equally capable who just weren't quite as lucky as you were at whatever level you were born into. And they deserve your compassion as much as you. So you're all going to be working late in cubicles at some point over the next few years. When someone comes to take the trash away, they're a human being too. Say hi to them. Say hello. Ask them how their day is sometimes. Get to know the people at Starbucks in the morning. Say hello to them. The janitor, the person at the front desk. Ask them their name. Tell them your name. Ask them how their day is. And when those, I think that was a great quote, until you get hit in the face. One day when you get hit in the face and everything at work seems terrible, they're not going to care about that. They're going to say hello to you just as they do every day. And it's going to lift you in the same way it lifts them. It will make everyone's lives richer. And some days they may surprise you. There was a guy who used to pull cables for me when I was a junior faculty member at Stanford. If I needed a cable run, this guy would come and pull the cables for me. He went on and started a multi-billion-dollar Silicon Valley company. He had enough compassion to still talk to me afterwards, and I was forever grateful. Second thing is contribution. So we had compassion, contribution. How are you going to contribute to the world? What are you going to do so that people will know you've made the world a better place? And I think that's what gives us all satisfaction, making the world a better place. Some of you may go and start great companies. Some of you become venture capitalists. Some will be CEOs of great companies. WPI graduates have done all those things. But there are many other ways to contribute. Perhaps you could become a high school math teacher. I have a daughter-in-law who's a high school math teacher, and she feels that every day she's contributing to her underprivileged kids. Or perhaps you'll become a mentor to a FIRST robotics team and help kids, yes, help kids see how they can be fulfilled by STEM. Or perhaps you'll write great poetry or plays and contribute to everyone's spiritual well-being. My point here is there are a lot of ways to contribute to the world. And when you contribute, you'll be rewarded by gratitude from those whose lives you help. I once witnessed a friend of mine, a woman came up to this friend of mine and said to her, you know, you don't remember, but 20 years ago, you taught my son to read. We thought he'd never read, but now he's a college graduate. Thank you so much for teaching my son to read. Lots and lots of ways to contribute. I got to tell you one story, though. It doesn't always work out quite so well. I was pitching to a well-known VC company in Boston, trying to get an investment. And I'd given the pitch, and afterwards one of the mid-level partners came up to me and said, Professor Brooks, I took your freshman course in computer science at MIT. And I'm thinking, this is great. I've got a personal connection. And then he looks at me and he stares at me and glares and he said, you gave me the only B I ever got in my whole life. Find a way to contribute. You'll feel better. You'll feel great about yourselves. And the final word is community. You have just had a great community experience here for 4 years. You have had a fantastic community of each other. It's been a diverse community. You're going to leave now. You'll keep connections to your community here, but it won't be the same. So I recommend to you, and I wish I had done this more in my life, just outside of your work, outside of your family, work on building a community that you can be part of. It will be more age spread out than it has been here. Hopefully it will be as diverse. But having a community that you're part of is a really important part of life. So I recommend compassion, contribution, and community. 3 things to keep in mind as you go forward. So while you live that life with compassion and contribution and community, don't forget to be curious about everything and courageous in stepping up to challenges, whether internally driven challenges or righting a wrong that you see out in the world. Have compassion, contribution, community, curiosity, and courage. And to quote one of those 60s TV shows that got computers a little wrong, live long and prosper.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks, for your thoughtful and important remarks. We will carry them with us for many years to come.